Hi, and welcome to my channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is Kate. I'm an integrative relational psychotherapist, a life coach, a yoga instructor, and an author. If you would like to schedule an individual online session with me, you can find all of the relevant information on my webpage. Now, moving on to today's topic, which is what is the difference, if there is any, between narcissism, sociopathy, and psychopathy? Why have I chosen this specific topic for today? Well, for one very simple reason, and that is many people confuse the three terms. Many people mix them up. Many people think that narcissism equals sociopathy and that equals psychopathy. Well, that's not true because we are dealing with three completely different, let's call them, categories. It is true that narcissism and sociopathy, or more specifically, narcissistic personality disorder and the antisocial personality disorder, form part of the same cluster, cluster B, which is the erratic, dramatic type of personality disorders. But that does not mean that the two are identical or that they are equal. No, there are some overlaps. That's why they are in the same cluster. However, you should not equate narcissism with sociopathy, nor narcissism with psychopathy. It would be even difficult to equate sociopathy with psychopathy because there are subtle differences. And the point of this video is to try to explain what are the main differences. I have noticed in my private practice, where I work a lot with women who are in a relationship with a narcissist, that they in particular tend to confuse narcissism, sociopathy, and psychopathy. Many women who come to my practice believe that they are in a relationship with a narcissist and they're describing this horrible person they've been dating for years. But what they don't realize is that their description of a narcissist does not match the clinical criteria that needs to be fulfilled if we wish to label somebody with a narcissistic personality disorder. Many women who come to therapy are in a relationship with somebody who is exhibiting many more traits pertaining to someone who has an antisocial personality disorder or who is exhibiting some psychopathic traits. So let's delve into the differences and some similarities between the three. As you probably know, antisocial personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder are part of the same cluster in the DSM, cluster B, that describes the erratic or dramatic personality disorders. But don't believe that narcissism equals sociopathy, because it doesn't. True, there are some commonalities, there are some overlaps between the two, but they are not one and the same. And the same applies to sociopathy and psychopathy. They are much closer to one another than, for example, narcissism and sociopathy or narcissism and psychopathy. We don't have a psychopathic personality disorder. We only have antisocial personality disorder, within which we also talk about psychopathy, but there are subtle differences, and I'll talk about them later on. Part of cluster B are also borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder, but those two are not the subject of today's video. So let's delve first into narcissistic personality disorder. So what is typical for a narcissist, regardless of whether they have a personality disorder or not? And mind you, if you wish to label somebody, and I hate the term label, and I hate talking about people as if they are labels or diagnoses, because they are not. But for the sake of the argument, let's say if you want to describe somebody as a person who has a narcissistic personality disorder, according to the DSM, that person has to fulfill 5 of the 9 criteria, which means that if your obnoxious narcissistic person is only exhibiting 4 out of 9, that will not give him a diagnosis of a narcissistic personality disorder. And what are the traits? What are the characteristics of people who have, be it a narcissistic personality disorder or just a narcissistic presentation or manifestation, as we call it? What is typical for narcissists in general is that they have this pervasive pattern of grandiosity. They have this constant need for attention and admiration, and they lack empathy. So this is some sort of a baseline for how a narcissistic person will act and think and experience emotions. Now, if we come to specific criteria, first of all, there is this grandiose sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and of course, a lack of empathy, like we said. Narcissists are also preoccupied with fantasies of power, ideal love, self-importance, beauty, achievements. So they focus a lot of their energy in achieving or in giving the impression that they truly are something special. Because another trait of narcissists is that they honestly believe that they are special and unique and one of a kind. And because of that, they can only hang out or associate with people who are equally magnificent as they are. Like we mentioned, narcissists require excessive admiration. They tend to be exploitative in relationships, but not to the extent that somebody with an antisocial personality disorder would. They do require also a lot of deference, so you have to be in awe of that, but that is not a criteria. Another criteria from DSM is that they lack empathy. I don't fully agree with that because I think narcissists do have empathy, not the same kind of empathy as most of us do, but they do have an empathy that is more self-interested and perhaps a little more intellectual. Because if they had zero empathy, it would be extremely difficult for them to manipulate you because they need to feel you first so that they know which buttons to push. Then narcissists are also very often envious of other people or believe that others are envious of them. And what is a typical characteristic of all narcissists, be them those with a personality disorder or those who do not have a personality disorder, is this arrogant, haughty behavior. So these are the characteristics of narcissists. If you paid attention, then you have noticed that with narcissists, it's all about them. They have to be provided with the narcissistic fuel. They need to be admired, respected. They require deference from other people, and they want to be on top of everything. Now, if we move to the other type of personality disorder, which is the antisocial personality disorder, we will see that we are dealing with somebody who might at first glance resemble a narcissistic person, but who in fact is completely different from a narcissistic person. So what are the typical traits of somebody who has an antisocial personality disorder or who exhibits sociopathic traits? Now, mind you, if you want to give somebody a diagnosis of an antisocial personality disorder, that person needs to fulfill 3 out of 8 criteria or typical characteristics. What is the baseline for people who do have sociopathic traits is that they are constantly disregarding social norms and they are disregarding the law. So they believe that the law does not apply to them. In this specific trait, they might resemble somebody who has narcissistic traits. However, the difference is that narcissists believe that social norms that apply to the general population don't apply to them. However, they would not go so far as to break the law. While for somebody who has sociopathic traits, breaking the law is just something they do regularly. They disregard the law. The law does not apply to them. They do not respect the rights of other people. So what are the typical traits? First of all, there is this persistent failure to respect social norms, to respect the law, and more often than not, people with an antisocial personality disorder behave in an antisocial way, meaning they completely disregard what is commonly accepted in a society as correct and appropriate behavior. We often hear that narcissists are skillful manipulators and that they lie. True. But the function of their lying is different to the function of lying used in a case of somebody who has an antisocial personality disorder. People who have antisocial tendencies lie constantly. They are deceitful, they assume false identities, they manipulate other people in order to gain something. So it's all about personal profit or personal gain. In the case of narcissists, when they're manipulating other people, is to achieve a higher status or to be perceived as something more than they really are. When it comes to people with ASP, they engage in deceitful behavior, in lies, in conning other people for personal profit or gain. They are also very impulsive. So they do not think about how their behavior might impact other people or what kind of consequences they might have to bear because of how they behave. They just don't care about that. It's completely irrelevant to them. They are also very irritable and aggressive. And this, I think, is where women who are in a relationship with a narcissist frequently mix things up because they believe that a narcissist would engage in very violent, aggressive behavior. Narcissists usually don't do that for a simple reason, and that is such a behavior sheds a very, very negative light onto them. And since we know that narcissists are craving attention, admiration, and glory, behaving in a negative way, in an aggressive way, would do them no favor. So narcissists really don't engage in such behavior. Perhaps if you're dealing with a truly toxic narcissist who is more alike to or akin to somebody who exhibits sociopathic tendencies, then yes. But in general, narcissists will not be violent. Sociopaths, on the other hand, will be violent and they will derive some pleasure from that. So they enjoy when they are tormenting other people, when they are conning other people. And people who have antisocial personality disorder also don't plan ahead. So they are very impulsive. They don't consider what the consequences of their actions might be. Like I mentioned at the very beginning when describing ASP, these people have zero regard for other people or other people's interests. Again, it's not the same type of selfishness as narcissists sometimes exhibit. Narcissists do tend to be quite selfish because they want to be on top of things. They want to be in the center of attention. So all eyes have to be on them. When it comes to people with sociopathic tendencies, they, of course, do all of that in order to manipulate others and to gain something for themselves. So they will go over dead bodies to get whatever they want. They will disregard the rights or the needs or the wishes of everyone around them. A narcissist wouldn't do that. Yes, a narcissist will try to have his or her way, but a narcissistic person will not go over you like a bulldozer. Narcissists are they're more charming. They engage in different types of manipulation. Somebody who has an antisocial personality disorder is like a bulldozer. They will just run you over completely. Somebody who has ASP is also exhibiting a lot of irresponsibility in all areas of their lives, be that being late for work, not showing up for work, not paying the bills, not attending school, not paying their debts. A narcissist will never exhibit that kind of responsibility. And what is also typical for somebody who has an antisocial personality disorder is a lack of remorse. They just don't care. A narcissist will feel bad and feel guilty, but will never show it to the outside world. While somebody who has ASP will never, almost never, feel remorse, regardless how badly they behaved or how much harm they have caused to other people. So what is then psychopathy? Psychopathy could be considered as some kind of a, not really subcategory of sociopathy, but a different shade of sociopathy. So if we take a look again at the characteristics of somebody who has antisocial personality disorder. So they disregard the rights of others, they are exploitative, they are manipulative, they don't respect the law, they don't show any remorse, they have zero responsibility. So all of these are more or less types of behavior. So when talking about sociopathy, we are talking more about the behavioral aspect of the person. When we are dealing with psychopathy, we are dealing more or less with how that person also functions not only on the outside, but on the inside as well. So psychopathy is more of a personality trait. It tells you more about the character of the individual. And there were many authors who have been dealing with sociopathy with psychopathy. For example, we have the Hare's psychopathy checklist. We have the Cluckley's description of psychopaths. And when talking about psychopaths, what we often observe in them is that they have this superficial charm. They're very glib. They also have this grandiose sense of self-worth, which is why sometimes people confuse a psychopath with a narcissist, this sense of self-importance. They need a lot of stimulation, which some people confuse with the need for admiration, which is present in narcissists. Psychopaths also lie constantly. They lie about everything. They're also cunning and manipulative. They lack remorse or a sense of guilt. They have very shallow affect, meaning that they don't fully feel or express their emotions. With narcissists, you can see pretty clearly what they are experiencing. And narcissists feel deep down a lot of shame, and they do struggle with an underlying sense of depression. You don't see that in sociopaths or psychopaths. Psychopaths are also lacking in empathy, seriously lacking in empathy. Narcissists, as we said, have a different type of empathy compared to other people. Psychopaths also have a parasitic lifestyle. So they sponge off on other people. Narcissists don't do that. Narcissists strive to achieve glory and success, and usually they put in a lot of effort. Psychopaths also have very poor controls over their behavior. They have a promiscuous sexual behavior. It is true that narcissists tend to flirt a lot. Many people believe that they are cheating on a large scale, which is not necessarily true, unless you consider flirting to be cheating as well. Psychopaths, so people who exhibit psychopathic traits, do engage in promiscuous sexual behavior. They do have problems with envy. That's why they often get irritable and aggressive. They are impulsive, like people who exhibit sociopathic tendencies, and they lack responsibility. So you see that there are differences between the three, between narcissism, sociopathy, and psychopathy. Narcissism, in my opinion, has very little to do with sociopathy and psychopathy. And many women who talk about their partners as narcissists are in fact dealing with somebody who is a sociopath or a psychopath or exhibiting those tendencies. And they confuse psychopathic and sociopathic behavior with narcissistic behavior. Does it mean that none of these types of personality disorders are treatable? Many people think that they're not, that it's hopeless and that people who have one or the other personality disorder are just doomed. I don't think so. When it comes to narcissists, they do come to therapy and they do get better. People who have antisocial personality disorder or who exhibit psychopathy usually don't come to therapy. They often end up within the judicial system. With narcissists, it happens very rarely. So I know it's been a long video and we've tried to cover a lot of ground in a reasonably short period of time. I do hope that you have now at least a sense of what it is that makes a narcissist, and a sociopath, and a psychopath. I hope that you have gained some insight into the three different types of personality and that you will know better how to distinguish between the three. And of course, if you have any questions, as always, you are welcome to send me an email. Or if you're experiencing difficulties in your relationship with a narcissist or even with a sociopath, you're more than welcome to schedule an online session. Do subscribe to my channel, do share the video if you liked it, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.